remaining chapters. We're not going to do them all, but got a few left. Today's is GLADYS3. Gladys was having a hard time figuring out how to undo what Karen had begun. She went to the leader of her second city. Asking around, she finally was introduced to him. Morris was sitting on what must have been Karen's throne, since it was an ornate structure that didn't fit with the style of his people. He was confused and seemed to be in a daze. Karen had entered his mind and kept him as a figurehead leader. Through him, she had absolute rules and someone to act as her promoter. Gladys cleared the confusion of his mind and had him sleep. When he awoke, they would talk. She should have done so immediately, for with all that needed to be done, she forgot about him, and in doing so, a new obstruction lay ahead. She did an inspection tour and used one of her people as a guide. They had built many massive structures, but few served a purpose. They had created dangerous explosives that were stored behind thick iron walls. There were deep caverns into the mountains that she shored up. The mountain was a massive cave, with no thought to safety or the possibility of collapse. The people were exhausted. As she strode swiftly through the land, she saw haggard faces that were now confused since their minds were clearing up. For ages they had toiled unceasing under Karen's rule. She had stopped time in the club and the god's home, so that what had seemed like a day had been many years, many hundreds of years. In that time, she had taken over the minds of almost all and become their supreme god. Her greatest mistake was in forcing reverence. What she had received had been minimal because of the hatred they held for her. Clouded though their minds were, they still could feel hate. Her abusive nature ensured she would never rise to supreme power. Gladys had them stop the smelters so she could scrub the air. The sight of a clear sky and the ability to breathe clean air was heart-lifting to them. She created food and replenished the soil by taking the poisons out and strengthening the remaining plants that were growing. She had everyone cease working for the week and relax. She ensured that meat, fruit, and produce was available everywhere. For a while, the people would have all they needed to eat and drink until the crops and animals were able to recover. Excuse me. She, she invited them. Apparently that doesn't help always. Excuse me. She, okay. She invited a small contingent from all locations in both cities to the main conference room to discuss the future. She sat at the head of the two civic leaders centered on either side. The rest of the location heads were scattered around the table. She opened the talks and had everyone tell of their concerns. As each person voiced a problem, she wanted her leaders to work on their solutions. She would be available to take care of those items not readily able to be fixed by everyone else. Her lead farmer was first to speak. The development of so many buildings had seriously curtailed the amount of farming that could be accomplished. One of the scientists left the room and returned with a large cylinder from which plants grew. Worked on fluids by incorporating different types of plants. The liquid was refortified as it was recycled. Started working on this the moment the land started diminishing. We create a large enough series of troughs we can grow food anywhere there's light. Morris, the leader of the other city, stood unsteadily. His mind was still foggy, but he was focused enough to answer. Well, we have buildings that are vast and empty. There's light enough to grow enough food for all, including selling. We can destroy other buildings that are vacant or unusable, and the materials used elsewhere. He sat down again and placed his head in his hands. Something remaining of Karen's torch was trying to come to the front. She had left his mind, but planted a seed destined to bear bitter fruit. Glass asked for their attention. She created a blackboard and explained how there was an Earth-like planet that was approaching close enough so that the group could migrate there. Using the leftover materials, a large ship could be constructed, and if done correctly, it could be dismantled on the other planet to provide shelters. The assembly applauded and began discussing possibilities both for the present and for the future. For the first time, the people of Earth learned of the grand plan. The Great Conjuncture. Lara is looking at a map of the Earth and working out where to build an assembly from the launch site. He decided on a central point from all cities and created a landmass in the center of the ocean. Just for fun, he created out of a volcanic eruption. People marveled at the sight of its eruption and powerful shock waves. This was to cause no small consternation to sailing vessels when they suddenly found an island where none had been before. In his enthusiasm, he didn't think of altering the maps until much later. Peter was in his office going over what his team should accomplish to prepare for the conjunction. He wanted to provide some better shelter than the hull of his ship. Called a meeting with his best scientists and got them working on a fabricator that could use refuse as source materials. This would be ground to a fine powder and mixed with a binder to create anything from windows to walls and floors. Gary was working on food preservation for a long duration mission and also to help at the beginning of colonization. His people were working on drying and concentrating. Those not on food preservation were working on seed selection and storage. Don's group was working with Gladys' scientists and Morris's ballistic masters to create a propulsion unit for the transport rocket. Ash and his people working on a computer system for the ship, for ballistics and monitoring the flight in front, as well as creating a communications system for both Earths. Dionysus, acting in Fred's absence, read over the progress reports and chuckled. The gods were on the ball and working together. There'll be no failure this time. This phrase is usually significantly called famous last words. All right, so we're going to stop there. Next is tribunals, then problems, and we're getting close to the end, so let's keep going a little bit. I am working on a new book. I don't know if I told you this before. The new one is called the Healed Avenger. It's about Soul Man, who is a shoe salesman who decides to become kind of a detective a la The Shadow. So it's an unusual story, and hopefully you'll like it. So as soon as we're done with this, I'm working on the editing right now, so I may not have the hard copy to show you, but we will be reading that in the very near future. So I look forward to bringing that to your attention, and hopefully we'll have it out in publication in the next couple of weeks. So that's it for today. I look forward to seeing you again on the next reading. Be good and be good to yourself. Bye.